Hi everyone, welcome back to FCK Ingenious Reviews. I'm your host Amit. Thank you for joining us as always. Today we will be reviewing the hit series Cobra Kai. This epic series has finally come to its conclusion after almost 7 years. I am actually the absolute target audience for this show, as I'm someone who grew up with the original Karate Kid films. They were right up my alley, and when I heard that they were coming up with a kind of a Karate Kid sequel, but based on Cobra Kai, I was so excited to watch it. As always, TV allows you to explore side stories more than films do. Films are very limited sometimes in what they can show and achieve, but with TV, you have more time to develop characters, develop stories. I was really excited to see what they could do with the characters of Daniel, with Johnny, and of course all the characters that they did end up bringing from the original movies. They definitely went back into the well and brought back characters that I never dreamed we would see again. So it was very cool. I wish I kind of had the channel years ago so I could have reviewed this entire show while it was going on, but unfortunately that's not the case. But we can at least review this final season together. And spoiler alert, we're going to be discussing spoilers on here. So if you have not seen the final 15 episodes, the final 6th season, then wait to watch all the episodes, then come back and watch this. I don't want to ruin things for you. Let's first give the show its rating and grade, and we can work backwards from there and cover all the topics that were discussed and shown in this 6th season. My rating out of 10 for this 6th season would be 6 out of 10. And to give it a grade, I would say it's about a B+. This season was pretty messy, to say the least. Quite often, it just ended up going in very random places. It took characters into very random arcs that I don't think really had any payoff, and it didn't really lead to any character growth. Character growth across the board this season was very stagnant for the most part, at least until the very end. What I will praise about this season and the show as a whole, they left all the characters, all the guys especially that we're rooting for, in a very good place. If you just, I think, go back and watch the first episode and then the last episode, you can see how certain characters ended up. Overall, I think you would be happy with how certain characters' story played out, that they got kind of the send-off they deserved. So there were some good pluses and minuses, but I would say definitely the biggest strength for the show this season was its finish, its ending. And I think that helped me with the grade a lot, with the rating a lot, because before that, I was probably going to go even lower, because I spent a lot of the season bored, to be honest, especially in part 3, the first 3 episodes. I guess that would be episodes 11, 12, and 13. I found them really boring. And, a lot of that was because there was no character growth at all in those episodes. It was a lot of stagnant revision of characters and themes that we've already covered. And for me, that's boring. If you just want to see kick-ass karate, then I guess, then it still might have been entertaining for you. But for me, the story just wasn't going anywhere. The characters weren't going anywhere, and I struggled with that. The truth is, the show could probably have ended about 2 seasons ago, easily. If you really look at the overall story from start to finish, there's probably really about 3 seasons worth of story, at most 4. But you know how it is with successful TV shows. They keep going and going, and they want to milk it for all it's worth. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. And I would rewatch it all, no problem, in a heartbeat, because I enjoy the characters. I still enjoy the overall world of the show. But yeah, just when you're hoping for a little bit more and, you have higher expectations and they don't get met, it's kind of disappointing in the moment. But overall, I still love this show, and especially the first few seasons I thought were amazing, and they're still amazing. I think Daniel-san's character is the most emblematic of this stagnation. I remember in season 1, he's going through it with Johnny, with Cobra Kai coming back and all that. So he becomes imbalanced. It starts taking over his home life, his work life. His wife is angry with him. Basically, his kids are unhappy. Everyone's unhappy. So, later on in the season, we see him go to Mr. Miyagi's grave, and it helps him find balance. And that becomes like a central theme of the season, that Daniel-san needs balance in his life. And Mr. Miyagi is the one who, even in death, can still help him find it. And that was beautiful. That was great. But every single season, that's the recurring theme for Daniel. And you're like, okay, you can only go to that well so much, and the character needs to be able to move on from that. You have to show that he's learned that lesson from Mr. Miyagi about balance, that every season we're not just going to rehash that. And even into the sixth season we do. I found it particularly weird that Daniel is so affected by Mr. Miyagi potentially having a backstory of, him, having assaulted someone, or, someone having gotten killed at the Sekai Takai by him. I mean, yeah, those would be, upsetting things maybe to learn about Mr. Miyagi if you're Daniel. But if Mr. Miyagi properly taught him, which, he did, Daniel-san would be able to deal with those issues. He would be able to cope with those issues. He would realize that if Mr. Miyagi didn't tell him about those incidences, there was a reason. But instead, we kind of just see Daniel kind of crash and burn and struggle with those incidents. And it doesn't make a lot of sense in the sixth season. We're still going over the same issues that we were in the first season. You want to see character growth, right? You don't want to see your characters behave the same way in season 6 as they were in season 1. And unfortunately for Daniel, we see a lot of that redux. Now, I think Johnny has the most interesting arc of any character on the Cobra Kai series, and rightfully so. The show is named Cobra Kai. It's not The Karate Kid returns or, continues. The center of the story is Cobra Kai and Johnny Lawrence. We're picking up his story, about 30-something years later after the initial All Valley tournament. And we kind of see in episode 1 of the series, where his life has taken him, what it's been since that tournament, basically, and where it's taken him. And if you go back and watch the first episode and then go watch the last episode, it's hard not to be satisfied with what they did with Johnny and his character. And I feel like they left him in a really great place. Cobra Kai being a Johnny Lawrence centered story, we see a lot of the original movie rehashed through Johnny's memories, through his insights, and it shades Daniel in an interesting light. Daniel can be petty, vindictive, even cruel towards Johnny in Johnny's eyes, in Johnny's memories. And in the original movies, we don't see that. We always see Daniel as a victim. And I thought they did a really beautiful job of shading both characters. And I think that's what made the show so terrific right off the bat in those initial seasons, that it was adding on to that beautiful legacy of the original movies and taking them forward. It was adding those shades of gray. It was filling in the blanks of the characters. And it just made for a beautiful canvas for this show to take off on. So I give the writers of the show a lot of credit. It would have been easy just to, make a Daniel, the Adventures of Daniel-san continuing, and that's that. But I love how they gave Johnny a interesting backstory, and they took it over 6 seasons and created some real growth. We see him basically go from a Neanderthal to, a fully functioning human being, with a family, with responsibilities, and it's really nice to see. It's not hackneyed. It's well done. Now, I'd say the plot to get Johnny there is pretty irrational. I really don't get how they will declare the winner of the Sekai Takai, or at least the tie. They'll break the tie with the senseis fighting. I don't think that would ever happen under any circumstances. Why would you have the sensei fight? But the reason, of course, is to give Johnny his moment in the spotlight, to give him redemption for losing that All Valley Championship in, I think it was '84. So it was to give him that bookend, and I can deal with it for that reason. I can understand why they kind of, did the story the way they did. It didn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't make a lot of sense if you really pull back and look at it. But if you accept that this is Johnny's story and it's his hero's arc, then it's like, okay, yeah, I can jive with that. All in all, it's a good reminder that in life, no one is entirely good or bad. And, we should see that with the characters of Johnny and Daniel. Daniel was not completely good, and Johnny was not completely bad. So just something to always keep in mind in life, I think. The kids, particularly the golden trio of Miguel, Robbie, and Sam, I think are the weakest part of the season. Because their characters absolutely go nowhere, and they really haven't gone anywhere for the last couple of seasons, I think. And I think it's kind of understandable when you stretch a show about high schoolers out this long. There's only so much you can do with them, and the fault lines will show. High schoolers aren't that interesting, at least not 6 seasons worth of interesting. And as far as their fighting scenes went, their training went, it was all very repetitive. They were just essentially like fighting robots themselves. This season, we see them train, we see them go in predictable fights, and it was a lot of rehashing of previous stuff. It would have been nice to see some character growth from them for sure, but really, where do you take these characters at this point? As they reached their natural conclusion. For us to get more, they would have had to kind of go on their own, maybe off to college or whatever experiences, and we'd see growth that way. But in the world that they were confined to, it's really hard to do anything with them. So I can understand the conundrum from the writer's point of view, but I felt a lot of the boredom of the season was a result of the kids just not having much to do and them not going anywhere as characters. The story between Tori and Sam was particularly boring, I thought. We've rehashed their rivalry to death at this point. There's nothing new to be mined from that. At the beginning, they're struggling to get along now, and then Tori's mom dies. She goes over to Cobra Kai, but there's still, redemption there. Surprise, surprise, between the two, between Sam and Tori. It's like we've done this, we've been there, and we've beaten it to death. Same thing with Miguel and Robbie. What are we going to do at this point? One of them has to be captain. Same with Sam and Tori, right? You have to choose a captain between the two, and we're supposed to, feel that rivalry. But at this point, it's been done so much that there's no payoff there, really. It didn't really matter who they selected as the captains of the Sekai Taikai team. I didn't feel like there was any tension there, really, at this point. And again, this goes back to just stretching out the show. One thing I do wish that they had done was they'd spent a little bit more time on some of the kids who were kind of like side characters. We barely saw Anthony in part 3. I think we saw him in like one scene. Same thing with Kenny. We did see a little bit of Dimitri and Hawk, who I think are fan favorites at this point, especially Hawk. But it didn't really seem like they did much with him this season. Maybe there's something they could have done to, advance their stories a little bit more. Yeah, we see them struggling to choose college and whatnot, but it was pretty inane, I thought. That storyline, the binary brothers have to stick together and whatnot. There just wasn't much to mine, I guess, overall there. But if they make spin-offs of this, I'd love to see, a Hawk spin-off. Maybe there's something cool there. I don't know. But he was always an interesting character, and he's actually one of the kids that I think I'll miss most from the show. Like, it was interesting to go from that complete introvert, bullied kid with the cleft palate, with the cleft lip, and if you've ever if you ever worked with kids who've experienced that, how tough it is for them. I've seen them in the clinic, and it is really difficult for them. Socially, mentally, in all phases, as you can imagine. So it was kind of cool just to see a young man like that get given that arc where he can take what makes him different and turn it into like kind of his own superpower, right? Like he becomes Hawk instead of this kid with this visible deformity. And I thought it was really good. Chosen is still the comedy relief in the show, and hey, it still works. I'm trying to imagine telling my 90s kid self that in 30 years, the character Chosen will be like one of the funniest characters on a Karate Kid continuation story. I don't think that would have quite, my mind would have quite accepted that as a possibility, but somehow they pulled it off. Chosen always had, a fun side story. I'm glad that they brought his character back. I'm sure there are people who didn't want him as comic relief and whatnot. They probably got tired of it. I'm sure there's always that section. I get it, but I, for one, enjoyed it. I didn't mind it. And it was nice to see our guy kind of get the girl at the end. He went over to Korea and met up with Sensei Kim. And I, hope they get, their thing going. I hope they have a happy life together. They have kids. They're going to kick some serious butt. That's for sure. So that's a possibility that, that could be one of the spin-off series if they decide to go. I'd love to see a Chosen Sensei Kim, kind of dojo series. That would be definitely interesting. Chosen in anything is a lot of fun, so I would watch that. Now getting to our series villains, Kreese and Silver. It was interesting to see that they gave Kreese that kind of redemption arc. But I didn't mind it. I thought it was good overall. I didn't really care for the entire Korea arc where Kreese goes to Korea. He sneaks out of the country somehow, even though he's a wanted criminal, and he goes to Korea. I didn't find it particularly interesting, even though I guess it's cool that they mentioned Sensei Kim, the grandfather in the third Karate Kid movie. So they have that callback. But that arc didn't do much for me. But it was cool to see Kreese, kind of be able to make up for his faults in some way. And of course, he had to be the one to take Silver out at the end. Who else, right? And then they did an entire like Michael Bay boat scene, the explosion and stuff. Silver till the end was a consummate 80s villain, and you had to love it. He was evil because he had to be, right? He was a bad guy because he had to be, and that's how it was back in the 80s. So long live Silver and his 80s villainness. I was hoping we get like one all-out battle royale to finish the show off, but I guess we got that in in episode 10 of this season. That was our final like all-out fight, and it was pretty cool. It kind of surprised me. I didn't expect it there. I thought we were going to get our prototypical stories where the good guys and bad guys fight in the final fights of the tournament, and we have our rooting interests and whatnot. But no, they just went all out and created a free-for-all. Maybe my favorite moment of the season is seeing like the chairman of the Sekai Tekai, I think his name is Gunter, seeing him get his face kicked by the Russian dude. It was so funny. I didn't like Gunter at all. I thought he was just annoying the entire time, so it was really cool to see him get his ass kicked there. It was just so random. I did not expect it at all. So props for that. Overall, looking back at the entire series, I love this show. It's made for me, like I said. I grew up with the original movies. I love them. I've known about them pretty much my entire life. So it was really great to see the show bring them back and bring back all those characters in such a positive way. The last season was a little bit flaky. Not the biggest fan of a lot of the things that happened, but it's okay. Again, if you're stretching out the show for this long, you're gonna lack stories, and whatever stories you do have are going to be very thin. So I get it, but it's still worth it to spend time with these characters. I'll definitely miss seeing them now. I know there'll be spin-offs and whatnot, but still, the show had it. Whatever it is, the show had it. And I will always love going back and rewatching, the old episodes, especially, the first few seasons. They're just absolute blockbusters. I love them. I love them to death. And I love how they ended the characters, where they left them at the end of the show. I think they did a terrific job. How they got there is a little bit messy, but the endings were really good. And I'm very happy with how they wrapped everything up. So props to the team. Let me know what you thought of the season, of the show overall, in the comments below. If you have any disagreements with any of my analysis, by all means, let me know. There's more than one way to look at things, and maybe I missed something, of course, too, a certain angle. So I'm not shy about, interacting and learning new things myself, so holler at me. But yeah, I love the show, and I look forward to some of the spin-offs. Hopefully they'll make them. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I definitely loved making it. I wish I could have made it for all the seasons, and who knows, maybe we still can. Maybe we can go back and rewatch, the individual seasons and make reviews for them down the line. Let's see. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and we will see you on the next FCK Ingenious reviews. Thanks.